Am I losing the whole essence of just making a cup of coffee? What the hell was I thinking? And we just kind of keep going down this rabbit hole of not so much wonder, but fixation on numbers and dials and all that stuff in order to get the coffee right. I just started to trust myself a little bit more. Even though I don't necessarily measure when I'm not measuring, I am measuring. A new Weber kettle, Dino beef ribs, but no thermometer. What the hell was I thinking? But I did it anyway. I smoked that piece of meat. It came out flawlessly. I started telling other people about it, and they were like, "Where's your thermometer? What temp did you do it?" I told them I didn't know. But something about that made me feel really good about the situation. And now that I think about it right now, it's not that I didn't know. I just started to trust myself a little bit more. See, we go through that a lot of times, especially in coffee. We got a scale, we got water temp, we got our palates, which is really the most important thing about all of this. And as we go throughout our journey, at first we're trying to get it right. But since we don't know a lot, we are less rigid, more free, trying to do the things that we want to do with our coffee. But something about the journey, as we keep going down it, we start to psychoanalyze everything. We're starting to be anal about all of it. We're trying to see if the water chemistry changes this particular coffee. We're starting to pay attention to drawdown on how that affects the taste or the acidity. We're playing around with different brewers, seeing if we can get anything out of them. Those are the games that we're playing with ourselves. And of course, we're measuring with a TDS meter in my case, or a scale in majority of our cases. And we have a ratio that we like. And we just kind of keep going down this rabbit hole of not so much wonder, but fixation on numbers and dials and all that stuff in order to get the coffee right. But something about those dino ribs and the new kettle kind of gave me that freeing sensation, meaning that I already know how to smoke a piece of meat. I've already done the whole thermometer thing. But the biggest thing is that I started to pay attention a little bit more. I started to feel the meat. I started to see what was happening to that particular meat. I started to pay attention to the color, how that will be my driving force. So even though I didn't know the temperature, I was able to dial it in perfectly, play around with different valves, kind of see where the smoke was coming from. And then start thinking about coffee a little bit, seeing where I'm at with that. I don't think I will for sure abandon the measurement devices that I do have. I think, at least for me, it makes it fun. But when I let go, when I start to just let it be for what it is, I start to realize that the coffee tastes essentially very similar to each other. And what I mean by each other is about the brews that we do and all that good stuff, right? I started to pay attention that I'm more in the moment with all of this. I'm actually seeing it for what it is. I'm actually experiencing that coffee as though it does change, that I'm starting to enjoy the whole ritual of it. Because when you really think about it, One of the clunky things about the actual coffee rituals is the measurements. You know, it used to start with the smell, right? You open up your bag and you smell your coffee. But at least for me, I don't even do that shit anymore. Just grab the coffee, put it on the scale, know my ratio, grind it up, pick which dial that I'm going to pick for the particular coffee, get my filter of choice. And I'm like going down this rabbit hole of the ritual. Then I'm thinking, okay, I do about 50 grams in of the bloom. Wait about 30, 35 seconds, probably a minute, depending on the situation. Probably sometimes I even forget. Then I do one pour. Let it draw down. Then do one more pour. I'm either done or I've decided to do 3 or 4 or 5 or whatever it may be. But when you think about that, that's part of the clunkiness of it. It's part of the ritual that I don't really mind, but now I'm thinking about it. That's part of the things that I hold dear to my heart because I'm measuring. I'm like really thinking about making this thing perfect. I don't want to mess it up. Again, it's that rigidness that I'm talking about here. There's so many different variables in coffee as it is in cooking. But when you pay attention, slow down, and just do one thing at a time, you start to realize that everything is more so the same. One way that I have actually gotten there, or not really starting to pay attention so much to the numbers, is by brewing the exact same coffee. It's not my favorite. I've talked about it many times. It's an Ethiopian white honey, and in this case, it's a lightly roasted one. It's very, I wouldn't say very acidic, depending on the situation and what you do with it. It can linger, it can come in, it can do all the things that you think that it will do. But then it has that softness, that subtleness, that apple acidity on it. It's a little bit of chocolatey notes, but not much at all. But it's the exact same coffee. I have about 2 pounds of it. Sometimes it's 10 grams, sometimes it's 20, sometimes it's 30, sometimes it's 12. Doesn't really matter. And then after a while, just doing the whole process, I stopped the whole measurements part of it. Yeah, I still did my bloom, but I was more present. I was paying attention to that coffee. I was actually smelling the coffee again. And then as I sat there after the brew was done, I drank it. I just stayed there with it. When I stayed there with it, it was tasty. It was fine. And then it caught me thinking, is this the direction I'm going in? Because again, I still think about those Dino ribs. I still think about how awesome they were. Were they the best Dino ribs that I ever had? They're up there, top 5. And that's probably because of my skill, my experience, and me just constantly playing, trying to get better at this. It's the same thing in coffee. It's the same thing that I think about each and every time now. Is that as I measure and pour and use this gadget, use that gadget, I start to wonder, is like, am I losing the whole essence of just making a cup of coffee? Am I not understanding everything that I'm doing? Because that's part of it. So as I sit here with you right now, one thing I do want you to take away with this is that when you feel that you are rigid in the things that you're doing with coffee, slow down, pay attention, and essentially just brew that exact same cup constantly. You may start to measure, but then eventually, hopefully, you'll stop measuring. You'll start to see it for what it is. And then you'll start to realize too, at least in my case, is that the tastes and flavors are very similar to each other. Measurements are not. Then you start to pay attention to other things in your cup. You start to pay more attention to the smell, to the whole process, the whole ritual that you're actually drinking your cup of coffee. And then when you do that, I wouldn't necessarily say that you've mastered that coffee or coffee in general. You're more free. You're more honest. And it allows you to just see where the knowledge and experience takes you in this whole process. Like, for instance, for me, for this actual Ethiopian coffee, I've been enjoying it actually, even though it's not my thing. But I've known or realized that the least amount of time that I measure versus measuring, the coffees essentially taste the same. And those are the realizations that I love to come to. So will I drop my whole notion of measuring? Nah, never. That's part of my ritual. That's part of the things that I like to do in order to understand that coffee. And then really, I think the reasons why we do measure is because we want to be able to replicate that magic of that coffee when it comes out, if it does work. But we also want to jot down the things that don't work. I guess really what I'm saying here is that you'll realize that you're really good at what you're doing. And when you measure and constantly measure and think and kind of go about it that way, those are your guardrails up. But when you let it down and you let it be, you're just as much knowledgeable. You have just as much experience in the whole grand scheme of things. So that's what I learned about the whole Dino ribs, the whole situation. I'll do it more for my actual cooking, my smoking of my meats. And I'll start to peel a layer here and there when I'm actually brewing a cup of coffee, especially when I have a decent amount of it to where I can drop the ego. I can drop the whole, it needs to be this way, it needs to be that way, and be a little bit less rigid, just be free. I think that's really what I'm saying here. When we measure, it helps us, it centers us in the right direction, I think. In truth, the thing about all of this at the end of the day is that even though I don't necessarily measure when I'm not measuring, I am measuring. I'm paying attention. I'm looking at different variables. I'm thinking on the spot. I'm paying more attention. I keep bringing up that word, attention, to all of this. And when we do that, we're just getting better. It's just a different way of looking at coffee, looking at life, looking at things in general. So let me know what you think. Talk to you later. Bye.